Good afternoon. It is 76 luscious degrees today, so that's why I'm wearing a t-shirt. It's really nice out. There's no wind, the sun is great, so now we can start looking for bulbs and green appearing from the winters past. So, I'm very lucky that we got back early enough. We were spending a lot of time at Johns Hopkins this week, and tomorrow, Friday, was canceled, and next Wednesday we have another meeting. And oversight, that's what we do to keep this working. They tell us what to do, what to take. And I say we, I am the caretaker, not the... Holly's the one who has to show the courage and deal with all this. So, what's going on today? Well, people are now talking about the remarks by the grand juror lady and her going on. I suspect that it's not just that she wants her 15 minutes of fame. Some have said that. I think it is more likely that she is anxious that her definition of imminence has passed or is passing. And I think she's trying to be honest and a minimalist in talking about the findings of the grand jury. Now, grand juries have occasionally run away. That is to say, they ignore what the prosecutor wants and what the judge wants and basically say, let's get this ship rolling. I don't know if that's what she's doing. We'll find out in the days ahead. She is not experienced plainly in dealing with the media, and so she may not appreciate until after the fact that what she says and how she says it can have a lot of effect. But I do not think, despite the fact that this is a plain error on her part to talk publicly as a matter of grand jury process, that anything she said would affect prejudice to the defendant. And there'll be a hearing about this down the road, but I think that's where it will end up. And there's not any place in America where if Trump was indicted, he could go and find a, in his mind, fairer jury, which is one that might not consider him the wrongdoer that he is. And it's interesting that he is looking for ways to be thought kindly of. He went to the derailment just yesterday, and it's I don't think that that has any effect with the people. The people want results, and I think what the EPA and the administration are doing is helpful. We'll see what the company does that's responsible for this. And there is talk about a criminal case, and there is also a claim that some of the water from this derailment that is basically toxic is making its way to Texas. Isn't that something? We have another candidate running for president, Tim Scott, and the only thing I got out of his announcement was that he is not woke. So what does that mean? He's sleepy, he's in a coma, like I said yesterday? Could be. The profile of his campaign is that I think he's barely present in the presidential sweepstakes. But he goes forward and he enlarges his profile, and some people run for president, so they say, but what they're really interested in is being on the ticket as the vice president. And there will be an opening if Trump gets the nomination, because he's not going back to Pence, that's for sure. I don't know if you listened to any of the Supreme Court discussion about the 2017 attack by ISIS, the terrorists. And the Supreme Court discussion was about what was the responsibility of Twitter with regard to the efforts by ISIS to keep in contact and to generate support among people who had access to their messages by Twitter. And it's a rare day when I find myself on the same side of something that involves Justice Thomas. But Justice Thomas asked at the oral argument, shouldn't there be some nexus or connection between the events, some cause and effect? That is to say, they did something that involved promoting ISIS. Now, ISIS on its own behalf, basically, I'm sorry, not ISIS, excuse me, Twitter on its own behalf said that, look, we identify these people, and when we do, we shut them down. So we're not failing our responsibility. And here's the deep, dark secret that I think the Supreme Court is concerned about. If we protect platforms for people to communicate by social media, what are we doing if we interfere and pick winners and losers among the communicators? And who would do that? Would the government do that? Should Twitter do that? And to what extent should they do that? And for the time being, the Supreme Court, the feeling I got from the argument was they're not going to make that decision. And if there's a decision to be made about modifying Article 230 that deals with, if you will, the immunity of a platform for those who use the platform to communicate, they're going to want to leave that, the Supreme Court, are probably going to want to leave that to Congress to do the kind of legislating that sets the process by which that could go forward. So, whenever we talk about First Amendment freedoms, we kind of say speech plus, meaning the plus is what invites us to be concerned. And so when Thomas says cause and effect, he's really saying you need more than just the speech. And there has to be a clear connection. Now, those who think Twitter should do more and should be liable for what ISIS did say things like they were aiding and abetting by permitting this to happen. But permitting it to happen sort of begs Thomas's cause and effect, which is what did Twitter know that made them part of this operation? And I think they have to say Twitter itself didn't. I'm also concerned when we create what years ago used to be called private attorney generals or attorneys general. And how it would work would be we put upon you the responsibility to enforce the law when we're not doing it ourselves, we the government. That's a slippery slope. I'm going to be putting away people who run social media. Now, this is not a new issue in America. The alien and sedition laws go back to Adams, and it was one of the reasons I think he didn't get a second term, and Jefferson got that term. And these guys, you know, they were attacking each other in presses that they owned or ran, and as a result of that, you have if you will, people retreating from that, recoiling from that model. So we don't want, and there were criminal provisions as well that went with it back in the alien sedition laws. So our early nation was already dealing with the question of democracy versus autocracy and how to deal with it. And Adams thought the president should be his imperial supremacy. And you know, there were others, of course. Hamilton was among that group. And when you go to the show on Broadway or any place else if it's replayed, Hamilton was not that guy in real life. Hamilton was basically an autocrat. And he was a resourceful and brilliant one, and so feared by people, the Constitution said you had to be native born in order to run for president for fear that he might. And his ticket was George Washington, and George Washington was, frankly, a better man than Hamilton and wouldn't go where it seems to me Hamilton wanted him to go. The best thing we can say is that there are still difficult issues floating around. I'm encouraged by the discussion by the Supreme Court. We'll see what they do with it. I think they see it rightly as a hot potato with problems to First Amendment exertions and problems with censorship and problems with cause and effect. And I don't expect them to do much, and that's good. The situation with the presidential contest is tied up with having an accounting for Trump. Could you possibly allow a person who did what he did a free rein to charge all the way to the presidential election with a nomination from the Republican Party and let that happen? What government does that? This is one for the history books. One that you'd see in a fictional series on TV, not one a better government would have. So come on, Biden. Somebody kick him in the ass. And then you go kick Garland in the ass and get this thing on track. And the woman from Georgia, file the damn indictment. End this thing now, or you may not be able to, if in fact you want to. Her definition of imminent is not my definition. When I say imminent, I'm saying a couple of days. She still hasn't done it. March the 1st is kind of a test because a new grand jury term begins, and we'll see if she does something then. But I have little hope that she will. But I will be glad to be wrong if she does. So here I am on this 76-degree afternoon out here in the Cathedral of Trees, and it's gorgeous, and I suppose it won't be like this tomorrow, but it's fine today. Bye-bye.